Welcome to the Half Full Podcast. Okay, we had to
I
do a
can't.
second take.
I
It took 40
can't.
minutes to set up.
I'm
Stop
freaking.
laughing at me. Um, this is episode 12. I only know that because we already did a take, and I already know this is episode 12. Um, for the first time on the podcast, we have a guest, a good friend of ours. I've been friends with him since we were about like 10 years old. Michael Usubansu, give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for being
Thanks for
on
being on.
today.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was awesome. Yeah, this is the first time we had a guest, and the reason why it's along the lines of the topic that we're going to talk about today. It's more of a heavy topic than the things that we usually talk about. Usually it's pretty lighthearted on here, but we felt that because we have a platform for all 7 of you who watch the podcast, uh, that it's still our, no matter how small our audience is, we still feel it's important to speak about stuff like this that happens.
Yes.
So we are going to talk about the George Floyd case and about racism in general, I guess. But for those who've been living under a rock and you don't know what happened, there was an incident with a man named George Floyd. He was arrested and detained by the police under suspicion of using a counterfeit bill or something of the matter. Um, the police obviously handled the arrest poorly because it ended up in the death of Mr. George Floyd. There's videos of it all over the internet. If you need to, it is graphic. So like, if you have like a weak stomach and you can't handle stuff like that, I would recommend not watching it. But
Mm.
in any case, for those who don't want to watch it, what happened was the police officer was kind of like kneeling, like he like knelt down on the back of his neck, and then event for like several minutes, even after he was pleading that he couldn't breathe and stuff like that, and then eventually he succumbed because he ran out of breath and then eventually passed. So obviously, the reason why this is so important is that this is not like the first case of things like this happening.
no.
Um, this is like uh, incident after incident after incident, and it's like it's almost like a boiling pot.
Mhm.
Like it's been built up, built up, built up, and then eventually it's gonna overflow.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And this was like the tipping point. So that's why you see a bunch of like protesting and rioting um, in the U.S., but other countries as well. Like there are cities in Canada have participated, and other countries and stuff like that. And I guess what we're trying to break down today is the situation, what our role is in terms of educating ourselves, and how we can fight against this kind of oppression, and also to gain an understanding because obviously Eunice and I are not uh, black, right? So that means we can't really truly understand
Mhm.
um, what someone like, let's say, our guest Michael goes through on a day to day,
Yeah.
and maybe to acknowledge some sort of maybe stereotype that things like this don't happen in Canada. And I think
Mhm.
it's like, oh, we're Canadian, so like we're not like the U.S. Blah blah blah. We don't have these issues and stuff like that. But maybe to provide some insight um, onto racism existing anywhere, right? So yeah, you guys can
Mhm.
take it from there.
Uh,
Words.
words. Okay. So back to what you were saying pertaining to racism being something that, as Canadians, we don't deal with it as heavily as those and our American counterparts will actually deal with. Right now, kind of growing up, I felt it not to like my
That's
and
good.
not to the extent where I felt like my life was in danger. But whenever I'd be on a bus, I'd be sitting down, and after I'd have a lady look at me, and without even saying anything, go sit right beside somebody else, without even any conversation. Right now, just little small things that you kind of have to deal with. Me myself, kind of growing up in more of like a Filipino dynamic,
Mhm.
because my church Filipino, my mom's Filipino. A lot of my cousins are half, so I seen kind of like on both sides, and there is certain stereotypes that I kind of had to like listen to here a lot of the times, and kind of like me myself, I'm really quiet about certain things. If some things make me uncomfortable, uh, something that I wouldn't consider like racist or, but stereotypical in that sense, I will kind of keep my mouth shut because I wouldn't. It's an awkward subject to bring up to people,
Yeah.
right? And people who you are close to sometimes would even be saying certain things that okay, I don't feel comfortable, but I'm not going to say because I know their intentions aren't really negative, right? So I think kind of like to educate us more on how to deal with this. Sorry, in a way for us to kind of like deal with this the racism that we kind of deal with. I would have to say understanding that it is something that we do go through, right?
Mhm.
Just understand that we are going to be seeing the second someone looks at us, or maybe not you or so or your friends or somebody I might talk to, but somebody off the street would look at me and will automatically assume I am this type of person without even
Mm.
having a dynamic with me whatsoever.
Mhm.
Right? So now I per se have not dealt with it because I've had that privilege. I can say not to the extent of everybody else, but growing up in more a multicultural like my school is more multicultural, my friends are more multicultural, my family is like all loving in terms of like so diverse in like the race, right? So I have not per se had to grow up with that like that one sidedness
Mm.
that I know a lot of my friends have had to deal with. But
Right.
yeah, now
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I guess like um, because even when it's like those small things, like you said, like someone looking at you weird or someone not like wanting to sit next to you on the bus, like that's still like a form of racism.
Mhm.
Like we can't really measure it. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
like when do those like kind of viewpoints on people start to turn into like bigger issues? You know what I mean? It's like, for example, the incident that happened not like around the same timeline as what we're talking about now. The lady who was like walking her dog and she didn't have a leash, right? So the person, a
Yeah,
black person, was like, "Yo, you gotta put your dog on a leash." You know what I mean? Like that's against the rules. And then she
Mhm.
calls the cops on him, and then she's like, "Oh, this guy is harassing me, blah blah blah," and stuff like that. It's like she doesn't get the danger of doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even though he may be uh, a really good guy and like super civil, right, does all these right things, the cops come, they see a white lady and a black guy, like who are they gonna point at,
for sure.
right?
Right.
And it
Now,
comes down to these things that we form in our heads about other people based on like the color of their skin and stuff like that.
Right.
now there was another video where I seen a cop. No, two convenience store owners. They were black. They were black, and they did call the cops because somebody was looting from them. Now, when the cop came on scene, you can obviously guess who they tried to arrest first, and the people who were looting ended up getting away.
Mm.
Wow.
They weren't even trying to listen to the fact that somebody was saying those are not like they're the store owners, but I know like it was
I'm
very
sorry, it's so funny how stupid it is. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
what? Like
that they the fact that the people are recording it now just kind of like really shows that this is actually happening. When you
Yeah.
like, I'm more that if I do have a son that's in a situation that he does get pulled over. I've never gotten pulled over and somebody and a cop has treated me negatively. I've only been pulled over once,
Oh.
right?
okay, nice.
I did do a rolling stop. That was my fault. But he was like, "Don't worry about it. I'm not gonna go." But
True, true.
that's not always the situation.
Yeah.
And there are people who are going to automatically assume you're doing something bad, either based on the car you're looking, the way you be dressing. Even if you're not are dressing nice, they will
Mhm.
automatically still assume certain things. Oh, you got a nice car, or are you a drug dealer, or you dress like more baggier clothes, or are you a gangster,
Mm.
right? So even like the certain nice things some people try to you kind of hear a lot. Oh, you're black, you're tall. Oh, you must be a basketball player.
Yeah,
I'm just,
it's still right.
but that's more
Uh,
just I wouldn't call per se see negatively in a racist sense, but
mhm,
it is certain things that we kind of are put in a certain bubble that we cannot be more than we are because we are projected as just being either bad or even if you're good, there's something off.
Mm-hmm.
mm.
So
Or like even to add on to what you're saying, Mike, sometimes like I see a thing where like when a black person is successful, it's like you put them on like a higher pedestal. It's like, wow, you're black and
Yeah.
you were able to do all these things.
yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
now what kind of like what I seen in especially in high school too, because I went from a completely all Italian school
Oh my
to
god.
to predominantly like black Latino, um, uh, very few Italian, like very mixed, right?
Mm.
Hmm.
And I completely seen how a lot of people who were really good ended up kind of going towards something that was familiar to them. Because growing up, you see that this is where you kind of belong. So if you don't measure up to this sense, you're going to kind of gravitate to this sense because this is where you kind of fit in. And if
Hmm.
we kind of try to go into um, another dynamic, we're kind of like we're standing out at the same time,
Mm.
Hmm.
right? So, and no matter where you kind of go, if it's not with the people you are with the same color, you do feel out of place to a certain extent,
Mm.
no matter where you kind of go. So
Hmm.
I can say I felt that, not to the greatest extent, but I have felt that.
Right,
To
right, right.
So Mike, were you ever taught to like protect yourself, or like were you ever taught to like were you ever taught that, oh, there are people out there who are gonna think of you a certain way, or did you have to figure everything out on your own?
I had to figure a lot of it on my
Mm.
my dad isn't somebody who likes to talk a lot about certain things, so
Yeah.
I had to kind of like see certain things, and there are certain times where I would go through certain levels of depression because I'd be like, oh, my skin's too dark. The people that I'm around are really light skin, or it's like somebody sees somebody of lighter skin, they will automatically assume they're person good. I'll go up with like a smile and everything, or because the fact that I'm really big, I'm really tall, and look scary. People, a big teddy bear that
True.
that
Yeah.
But yeah.
so I did go through certain times where you start hating yourself to a certain extent.
Mm.
Up until, but then after you got, when I was around like 19, 20, I had to just tell myself to cut that off. Like, you were made perfectly in the eyes of the Lord. So in a sense, you got to fall in love with who you are, right? So,
Right, right.
but from a young age, we are seeing that this is what you want to aspire to be, but you cannot be. Kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Just to bring it back to like why all of this discussion is popping off. Um, what were your like initial reactions to hearing about the George Floyd case?
It was familiar and it wasn't
Mm.
new. It was just being
Mm.
recorded. My worries were that one, this would be short lived, that people would be cheering for the Black Lives Matter, the movement, doing everything they can, but then after it would just die off in a month.
Yeah.
Go back to the same kind of ignoring it. That I know, and I know there's a lot of people, there's millions of people who are out there who truly believe in the cause and they understand this is a situation that we need to open our eyes to this. Now, I also had the fear that, okay, with the rioting, with the looting, everything, I get that, but I know there are going to be people who are going to take advantage of it, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest.
Hmm.
And you see
Right.
that because people kind of try and piggyback because they're seeing it as a trend. They're not seeing
Yeah.
it for the message to talk about, right? And then after you got news, the president, everything, and just so much that you kind of feel overwhelmed because you're just trying to matter,
Yeah.
right? You're
Right.
trying to make sure this is a situation, right?
Mhm.
So, and like, we're really not trying to say that we're better than anybody. Like, no, like, we just want to match to a certain extent, like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I said,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
because going online, I see certain things um, well, I'm on Twitter a lot, so I see. So a lot of talk is usually there. So someone posted something about, like, in China they were talking about, oh, I'm okay with being racist, fuck black people, and after, like, pretty people who were pretty open about, like, being racist in that sense, and then
Mhm.
after people were kind of like ignoring all lives matter. We could go through that, like, every for a long time, but at the end of the day, it is something that we do feel like we are not. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough topic because it's like I can understand why people are so upset because it's kind of like, well, you wouldn't listen to us when we would silently protest this stuff. So it's
yeah,
Mhm.
like, what's gonna make you listen? I mean,
yeah.
Mhm.
it's like we gotta like open their eyes to see like what's going on, like
Yeah.
you said. Because even then, like I think like a bigger topic too is like acknowledging that like that racism happens on like many different kinds of spectrums.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like and but then the hardest thing is like trying to find before I get into that, like I think the hardest part is trying to find into like the core issue. It's like where do we start kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I understand the ideology of, you know, defunding the police or having some sort of like reform within them to like have better suited officers who know how to that are
But
more maybe more versed in sorry?
it's bigger than them. It's bigger
Mhm.
than
Right.
just.
That's yeah.
Uh,
It's one issue, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just like first it's the acknowledgement of like how black people are treated differently or certain causes are treated differently. Because if you look at the example with like all the people who are protesting the quarantine, it's like first of all, you're out of your mind, right? You
What?
had like yeah, there were people who were protesting like, oh, we don't want to wear masks, you can't keep us
Oh
locked in,
my
you're
god.
infringing on our rights as an American.
I want a haircut. Yeah,
People like this.
And but then you see how the police who were monitoring the protests would act with them,
Mm.
right? But now
yeah.
people who are supporting a cause for Black lives, right, and they treat them like garbage.
Yeah.
It's like you can see the parallels right there. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or the differences.
Mhm.
It's like you gotta acknowledge that first. You know, you are treating these people differently and this cause differently than you would something else.
Yeah.
You know?
But I do feel like the fact that this came out like now is a key time, because even with even with the president itself, I I had somebody talk to me about, oh, it's his fault. I'm like, hold on, take a step back. He just exposed what was already there. He just openly expressed that he doesn't care.
Mm.
And after, there are people who weren't quiet about it, who are now more vocal about it, and who even cause law enforcement, just people in general. They have normal people wearing, like, having AK, and well, having assault rifles on them, walking around. You don't have the cops not doing anything about it, right? But then after, they're going to attack protesters. Like, they make
Mm-hmm.
it very evident that they just do not care, right?
Right. Right.
And it's more vocal about it now. I feel like it would not have gone to the extent it did if the president was not there, who he was.
Yeah.
But it escalated to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a cause of it,
Mhm.
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like things like this have been happening before Trump was in office, right? Like this
Mhm.
is just like, right? There's been issues and issues about stuff like this, no
Yeah,
matter who the president was and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, like we're speaking as Canadians, so it's like we're not like the most well versed when it comes to like American
For
politics and
sure.
stuff like that. But we know what's going on. Like this is
Yeah.
all we
Yeah.
see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but like trying to get back to like maybe trying to find like talking about like the core issue, because for me as like I'm in the pursuit of becoming like a teacher. You know what I mean? So it's like what my viewpoint is like, how can I create like a good environment in schools where students accept each other, and they don't make negative stereotypes and they don't act racist towards students. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's sometimes easier in where we're from, like in Toronto, because you have
Mhm.
such multicultural communities that people will
Yeah.
often group right
Mhm.
within their own cultures and then attack each other. And
Yes.
Mhm.
it's like, how can we create a more inclusive environment, like especially for teenagers, right? Because like when you're at that age, right, you're gonna carry a lot of those like values as you grow older. So it's like we gotta like nip it like when they're young, like when
Mhm.
kids are young,
For
that like
sure.
this is not okay, you know,
Yeah.
you know. But then I even think about like me and Mike, you know what I mean? Because me and Mike have been friends since long time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
Babies.
when we think of, because this is when I think about it, right? Like
Yeah.
when I was a kid, like I never saw Michael as like black, you know what I mean? I like not before I saw him as my friend or my brother, you know what I mean?
Is
It's like,
learned. A lot of is learned,
hmm
right? So you did come from a more multi, like you were white as well as you're Asian, right? So
hmm
plus you had friends who were of different ethnicity. So
Mhm.
that's true.
naturally,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Now
hmm
there are people who come in one dynamic, so they can only see one, and they're told one thing, they see one thing, so that's what they expected for their whole lives.
Mhm.
And
Right, right.
when they have people with power reinforcing that belief, they continue carrying on for the rest of their life. Whether
Yeah.
it's it starts off with your parents, how they view people, the
hmm
news that you see, how people talk about certain things. So everything fall. I think teachers are a big role, 100%, because having a teacher who actually looks at you and wants to actually help you develop is a big key to like us just as developing as individuals, right? So I do love
Right.
that you want to take that aspect of helping these kids grow.
Yeah, yeah. Because you learn like the teachers, like, because a lot of the times it's like, I don't know how you feel. I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, but it's like, um, when you have this issue with the police and black people, right? Then maybe there's a bad relationship between like uh, black people and like authority figures. You know what I mean? Like in general. So like they see like authority figures as more of like threats and stuff like that. But it's like we gotta like break down that wall that it's like I may be in a position of authority as a teacher, but it's like I have the best interests for you, no matter who you are. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? But it's like it's crazy that a lot of the cops don't feel that way. You know what I mean? That's like
Yeah.
that's the tough part.
Yeah, when you have power in just general, bro, your beliefs, you think you can do anything at this point. And when you see other people, and it's more of like, no offense, but cops are our biggest gang. Like, because they protect
True,
their
true.
100%.
Blue protects blue, right? Yeah.
Blue, blue. At the end of the day, it's like if you attack one cop, you attack all cops. Just like you attack one black person, you try to attack. That's what we're trying to make known. So, and it's a battle. People truly believe it's really a battle between us and them, but that's what we're trying to accomplish at
Mm,
this point, right? So now, am I afraid of authority figures? I get uncomfortable for sure, but never. I've yet to feel that fear to that
right.
extent. But I
hmm
know that it is something that I'm either might in later on going to deal with, or my kids, or somebody else in my family, or somebody I'm close to has dealt with, or is going to deal with.
hmm
So it is a reality that I have to be conscious of. And one thing that I was I made a post about. How do you really go about talking to your kids about racism?
Right.
Like, how do you like? We want to protect them
Mhm.
from something, but it's something that's scary that even in kindergarten they're gonna do it,
hmm
right? You're gonna see a kid being a bully for certain things that if he feels out of place,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It is something. It's an ongoing. It's obviously it's not. There's no one answer to it. It's an ongoing discussion,
hmm
but it's not. It's for sure. It's not easy to.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no one solution for sure.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel like a lot of people are being very vocal about this now, right? But there are a lot of black people I've seen who are like, I get to choose who my allies are, because a lot of white people are just like speaking on behalf of black people. They're acting as if they know what's happening. They act as if they know how it feels. And that's just like, I don't know, I feel like it's in a sense kind of disrespecting or just like missing the point of the whole movement. You know what I mean?
I feel it comes with the intent too,
Yeah.
right? Because there are people who are genuinely trying to make it known to a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? But you are right where in the sense that the whole point is not to try to take away our voice, right? So that is something that we always obviously have to like be more vocal about, because I've seen people who are just quiet about it because most people don't know how to really speak about it.
Yeah.
Most people don't know
For
how to
sure.
approach it. So all we kind of know right now is the consensus, which is everybody right now like marching for it,
Yeah.
right? Because the last time this happened was when Martin Luther King died. Um, that was the last time like a riot like this actually to that extent.
Yeah. I guess like the impact,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
like
impact, yeah.
right? It's like, yeah. Because I guess like in terms of that, because in your perspective, Mike, because like Eunice and I were not black, or like maybe other people that you know who aren't black, what do you think is the best way, like as a friend, let's say, right? Like what's the best way that we can support you in terms of like acknowledging and understanding?
Honestly, as of right now, everybody I know is currently doing what they've been doing. I don't know any, but I've cut off basically everybody who I don't really feel comfortable in a sense of if you're negative in the sense that you're kind of low key like disrespectful to me. I don't bring that in life anymore. So you, John, Casey, everybody who's close to me basically has that level of respect that they understand that this is something that we deal with. Now it's be something that is hard to kind of like translate to those of who are older, right?
Yeah.
But I do. At the end of the day, we are gonna be the voices.
Yeah.
So we determine at the end of we might not be able to change somebody else who's older, might say, but we will be able to change the mindset of the people around us, our age, and that's
Right. Right.
being changed. So I
Hmm.
see there's growth there.
Yeah. Because that's the tough part. It's like trying to
It's
uh,
tough.
change the minds, not like change the minds. We're not trying to like hypnotize people, but it's like try to get people who are older than us to kind of understand.
To
You know what
understand
I
is the
mean?
big point. Yeah.
You know, because like
Yeah.
especially us, like let's take it into like a Filipino perspective. You know
Oh
what I
no.
mean? It's like I don't know. It feels like it's not something that's talked about, but I've heard lots of Filipinos say lots of racist things, right? Just because, and we feel like it's okay because it's like, oh, they're also a minority, so it's like whatever. But it's like you're only perpetuating more like negative things by like not calling yourself out on saying something bad about like a particular race or something like that. You know what I mean? Even like go even further, right? If you look at Filipino culture, it's like the divide between people who are like darker skinned or lighter skinned.
I colorism. Yeah, I talked about that too with some of my friends.
Yeah, but like how like it's so toxic, you know what I mean? Because you have
It's so
people who
toxic.
you have Filipinos who have darker skin and they feel like more out of place, and it's like that shouldn't be a thing, you know what I mean? Having products or like certain procedures that you can take to brighten your skin too. It's like and people feel like they need to do that, and it's like that's awful, you
Yeah,
know?
like I've had an ex's tell me her mom loved me, but her dad thought because I was darker skinned, I was automatically bad.
Wow.
Right? So I was like, okay, I kind of brushed it off
Oh my
because
god.
I've had people I like it's nothing new to me. it's something that you're just gonna have to deal with. It's just how you approach it, and just kind of like remove that kind of energy from your life. To be honest,
Mhm.
because you can only change people to so who really want to be changed.
Yeah.
To be then
Yeah. That's the sad part,
it
Mhm.
is.
right? Yeah. Because the sad part is that like when you can't change the minds of people in power, like that's when it's really bad. Because then you
Mhm.
can't. Then no change will happen.
No real
You know what I
change. No,
mean? Because that's yeah. But, I don't know.
Have you had any debates with your families in the last week or so about this topic?
my sister's boyfriend for sure, but
Mm,
my parents more they're not the top,
I
right?
get that.
It's kind of a difficult issue to bring up.
Yeah.
You know.
My parents
Like,
finally heard about it, I think, like
mhm,
last night. And I mean, they're taking it well. They're like, oh, that's terrible. Whatever's happening, riots, what is going on? Like, they have so many questions now, and I'm trying to answer everything for them.
Mhm.
But I don't know how it'll go about in the upcoming weeks with like services and stuff. We'll see how they
Mhm.
approach it with messages.
I've actually seen like certain churches like really try to make it a point to address the situation right off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
right? To feel like that's really a great approach that I think we should try to do, like just kind
For
Right.
of like
sure.
right. So because it is something that most people just try to avoid at the end of the
Mhm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's tough too. Because it's like we're taught that we should like love and accept others. You know what I mean? But then you have the same people, like let's say like Southern like white fundamentalist Christians, right? Who are who feel like the need to be racist. It's like you're just completely
Every-
contradicting like what you've been taught. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any
It's
sense.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
at that.
Because whether you're religious or not, you know what I mean? For people who are listening, it's like at the end of the day, someone died for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to,
Yeah.
right? Like he wasn't maybe he was doing something quote unquote illegal, but at the cost it wasn't worth his life. You know what I mean?
No.
And people are upset about it. That was someone's father. That was
Mm-hmm.
someone's husband, brother, friend. At the end of it, you know what I mean? If that like when I think about it, it's like just try to put yourself in the same shoes. Like if that was someone you know, hell yeah, you'd be upset.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And like
Yeah,
this is happening. The thing is, this is not the only case. Like we said before, this has been happening and happening and happening. And it's like we need to put a stop to it. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna just snap our fingers, everything's fixed, right? With everything that's going on, but it's like it's kind of like a slow grind, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah,
yeah. The scary thing is like we were talking about how it's hard to change people of like older generation, but it's
yeah.
like there are people our age, right? Who who have like the bad ideologies. So like they're only gonna carry out to like
Mm-hmm.
their generation and stuff like that. So it's like we
Yeah.
gotta change the people who are like in our kind of spectrum
Mm-hmm.
too, I guess. So,
Like one thing, somebody I grew up with in elementary, like we were really good friends, like for a long time. I heard him, like I seen him. He always posts Confederate flags throughout the years.
oh,
I've seen this.
Oh dear.
so when you went to elementary school?
Oh shoot.
Like, but mind you, you don't like you don't like he didn't seem like that type of guy. He accepted me for
Mm,
what, but it was just the fact that even with the situation going on, I seen him um, posting about, oh, how about black on black crime? I'm like, we
Oh my
know about
god.
nobody. That's one of the like try to divert from the main topic. Like, we know about that.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right.
This crime. We
Mm-hmm.
already
Mm-hmm.
know the topic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So trying and after at that point, I just kind of unfriended him. I'm like, I don't want this energy. Like I
Yeah.
can't.
Right. Yeah. It's like these things. It's almost like it's bringing out like who people really are. You know what I mean? And you
For
can now you're gonna start to like
sure.
weed out the ones you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, why would you try to deflect the issue? That's not the issue. The issue is like, is this, and you're trying to bring in this to negate what we're
Mhm.
talking about now. Like,
Mhm.
why do that? Like, I saw like a comic. It's really stupid, but it kind of makes sense. It's like someone fell and like hurt his leg, right? And there's a guy trying to help him, and he's like, oh, my leg. And there's a third guy who's looking at him. And it's like, well, what about my leg? It's like, you know what I mean?
It's not about
It's
your
like,
leg.
this isn't about you.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
That's funny. That's like the
But
all
it
lives
makes
matter thing, the whole situation with that as well.
Right.
Just,
Yeah.
just how Asians are like, oh, what about Asians? Well, it's not about us right now.
It's
about
really not.
Black
Actually-
lives right now. It's so annoying.
I know. I think it's like, I don't know, because sometimes Asians, we kind of do a thing where it's like we're not talked about enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and that we want to like matter too, and it's like,
Mhm.
dude, it's just not the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like going back to like how Asians are always like put into the box of like the model minority. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, right, our kids are smart and they get good grades and we become doctors and lawyers and all this BS. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like even if those are considered positive, it's like you're still being put in a box too. And I understand that you want to voice out because you feel like you matter, but if you're not being treated the same, like this is like it's a police issue, like police versus like how black people are being treated by the police, right? Like that's one of the core issues. It's like I don't think you're facing the same things that they are. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not.
So it's like, you know what I mean? So why
Oh.
try to like get yourself to matter in this situation?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think people gotta like forget trying to put themselves in like on the same map and just acknowledge that it's like this is the issue. It doesn't have to do with me, but I still want to support it.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. It's
It's-
like I
it is
got
kinda bad.
like I got some messages over the week after I made a post about this entire situation, and this guy was like, "Well, what if you had done your research, you would have seen that white on white brutality is higher than white on black." And I'm like, that's not the point.
That's not the point though. 'Cause even then, it could just be a numbers thing. You know what I
It
mean?
is a numbers
like
thing, and
where-
it's totally
gotta-
taken out of context. It's like
Exactly.
it's,
Yeah,
it's
'cause
like
if you look at
I'm
when
not
you look
talking
at
about that.
numbers like that, okay, where are the numbers coming from? What's
Yeah.
the overall population? Right? You can't take it percentages like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like that doesn't make any sense. Even if that were true, you know, it's like
yeah.
that's not the point.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's actual. The sad thing is, it's like even though like things like this happen, it's kind of like it's sad that the reason why this popped up is because it was recorded. Because if it
True.
wasn't recorded, like would people really take action and
Mhm.
believe this?
A lot of the deflection. Oh, he tried to track me back. He was trying to resist. He was trying but mind you, these are common lines that are being told. And then after, there's no video, but when there's a video to fight that, the cops don't get arrested. They just probably go out and leave.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
no change. They don't get arrested for attempted murder. They don't get arrested for assault. They don't get arrested actually make putting someone blind. To them,
Right.
they were justified, and that is. But when people see it, they be like, "Oh, what did that person do wrong? What if he didn't do nothing wrong? He literally was just trying to go home."
Right.
Exactly.
But you're not gonna. But you don't look at every reason as to why, to justify why society is okay, because it makes you feel uncomfortable, realizing this is a situation.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's the sad thing, you know, because like when it comes down to it, it's like a lot of people, no matter who you are, you face maybe some sort of oppression. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to like compare other oppressions to other oppressions or whatever, but it's like for me, like as an individual, it's like how can I perpetuate hate against someone for something that they can't control? You know what I mean? your skin color is not something that you choose. You know what I mean? So why hate someone for it?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Hate someone for their actions and the words they say. Hey, that's fine. You know what I mean? If that guy's being a douchebag, then hey, he's a douchebag.
Yeah.
You know? But like that's his choice. You know? You can choose whether or not to be a bad person, but you
Mhm.
can't choose whether or not what kind of skin color you come out with. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So yeah. Another topic I wanted to bring up too. Sorry if I'm like rambling a lot,
No,
but
do it.
like
Ramble all
it's
you
the
want.
I talked to this with Eunice the other day. It's like this idea of like acknowledging certain privileges that we have. You know what I mean? Because like me being, it's I have a weird mix because since I'm white, right, and Asian, it's like I'm in the minority, but I'm also in the majority.
Yeah.
So it's like am I privileged because of my name because I have a white name, right? And like maybe people who read my name maybe will have certain uh, ideas about who I am
Mhm.
versus if they look at me because based on my experience the people who meet me for the first time they usually fully they think I'm like fully Asian. They never really see that like I'm mixed unless like they really take a look at me or they ask.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like it's hard to I want to acknowledge my privilege because I do have privilege, but at the same time it's hard because like I don't know where I stand like as a mixed person. It's really weird, you know.
Well, okay. A question: have you ever had a situation someone looks bad about you?
Well, like this is kind of a funny story, right? But it's kind of weird. So I was volunteering at York for
Yeah.
like an event or something like that. Like I was supposed to like help move stuff or whatever. So the person who's in charge is like calling out names, right? And he's like, okay, Ryan Bartlett, right? And then I turn to him, I'm like, that's me. And he looks at me like, really? And he's like, okay. So like I guess he didn't think that my face matched my name kind of thing,
Yeah.
So
It is
so that was
interesting.
so. But besides that, it's like I don't know. It's hard to say because most of the time people like if let's say like someone's trying to take a jab at me like in high school or whatever, I say like the jocks come by and they say
Mhm.
something to because I'm hanging out with the other Asians or the
Mhm.
other Filipinos, so they're gonna make like an Asian comment at me like "Hey yo Ling Ling" or something like that.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that stuff happens, but like name calling is like to me it's just kind of weak, you know, right? Like you can't compare name calling to like people losing lives, right? Like one is definitely heavier than the other,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
I can deal with the easy stuff.
I can take the
True.
names. I can take the disrespect. I can take, but it's like once you start becoming physical in that sense,
Hmm.
then it's like
That's a different story. Yeah.
Right?
situation, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Not to say that names aren't good or good. Like they are bad. Like you shouldn't do it because it
Uh-huh.
could build up into action,
Yeah.
right? But it's like when it starts affecting people's lives, that's when we have to talk about it, and that's why
Mhm.
we're talking about this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been going for you?
Hitting 50 minutes.
Okay, I mean it's a pretty good
Yeah.
time. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
Per se, I want to thank you guys for first and foremost bringing me here to talk about this issue, right? And being able to have that dynamic too, because not most of the time even work is not something that people will sit down and be like, hey, let's talk about this issue, or
Mhm.
even with your friends too. It's hard to talk about this issue. So,
Hmm.
like, I do feel what you guys are doing using your platform is something that's generally going to be helping a lot.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. Man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
No
Mike.
Yeah. I think
Yes.
at the end of it, man, we just gotta love each other. Right? We gotta stop with this
Love.
hate, right? Love, man, love. That's it.
It's all about
Remember
love.
when
Yeah.
Timothy Delgado?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, dude. He actually did a podcast talking about this too when he was talking about talking with Rick. That was
yeah.
a really good one. I don't know if you'd want to watch that. It's pretty good.
I still have to
But
watch that.
yeah. But I mean, it's cool. It's cool seeing people use their platforms to bring this up. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because like Eunice and I have always talked about like how we don't want to make the show like super political. We want to make it like nice and lighthearted and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
for me, this issue is not really political. It's like
No.
it's
It's
people's
like
lives. You know,
yeah,
having
it's
compassion.
a human thing that people need to know about
It
and be
goes
educated
beyond-
on. Yeah,
It goes beyond politics. You know. It's
for
like-
sure.
So.
Yeah,
I guess we could wrap it up. I think that was
Let's-
good. You know.
wrap it up.
Let's get another round of applause for our very first guest on the Half
Ah,
Podcast ever, Mr. Michael Owusu-Bonsu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Please come back
For all
on.
those listening, yeah, if come back on for another time, we'll have another topic, probably not as heavy as this one.
Yeah,
Something a bit funnier. We'll
yeah,
have you react to like something a weird Filipino thing.
yeah.
Whatever.
Let's do
You'll
that.
get it. You know. Yeah. But for all of those who are watching, thank you so much. This has been the Half Full Podcast. Check out our other episodes if you want, and thank you for joining us today. Bye bye.
Bye.